Hi again. We're calling this video The Captive Widow. In ancient times, widows had very few or no rights. In many societies, unmarried women were considered to be property of their fathers, and married women were considered the property of their husbands. Being widowed could mean death, being left destitute, or becoming a slave. Fortunately, over time, widows' rights and social standing have improved. For example, during the Victorian period in some Western societies, a widow was allowed to remarry after a mourning period of a year to 3 years and held some property and financial rights protected by law. However, society expected some behaviors that still existed, such as wearing black clothing, maybe even a veil, and acting out her mourning when in public. Today, widows are better protected with property and financial provisions in the United States. Most couples establish legal wills or trusts to define property distribution after a spouse's death, and most couples have life insurance for this exact reason. But there are no longer specifically defined expectations or universally expected behaviors for widows in our mainstream society. On one hand, this gives widows much more freedom to make choices without any real social repercussions. On the other hand, without agreed upon expectations, widows face a lot of uncertainties. How are you supposed to behave? What restrictions should you impose upon yourself? The answers to these questions aren't necessarily simple, and they're not necessarily available. What we see is that widows often place restrictions on themselves, and sometimes indefinitely. At our widow retreats, many ladies tell us that they feel like they are dishonoring their husbands if they laugh or smile, especially in public. If people see them enjoying themselves, then it means they no longer miss their husbands. They question whether they should even enjoy life again. In our experience, the expectations they place upon themselves create a sort of grief prison in which they live. We see this as a significant obstacle to widow healing because they think that feeling better is dishonoring. We spend much time at our widow retreats helping them shift their thinking on this topic. If you worry that you might disrespect or dishonor your husband by being happy again, I would like you to ask yourself 2 questions. First, if you asked your husband if he would rather see you happy or indefinitely grieving and in misery, what would he say? Then, in turn, ask yourself again, if you had died instead of your husband, would you want him to be happy and enjoy the life he has left, or would you rather that he just grieve indefinitely? Well, I don't have extrasensory perception, but I think I know what your answers would be to those questions. If you have moved past any self-imposed restrictions and are gradually learning to enjoy life again, we encourage you to keep moving in that direction. If you are just now wondering how to transition from focusing on your loss rather than your life, here's a great way to start. Schedule grief breaks. What's that? A grief break is very simple. You simply give yourself permission for an hour or so to live without focusing on your grief. Now, you could watch a comedy on TV, you could have coffee with a friend, and agree in advance not to talk about your loss for an hour. Take a walk with your dog, or borrow someone else's dog, and just enjoy being out in the world. Then start extending your grief breaks to last for an evening, a day, and then a weekend, and begin including other people. We promise that you will find that the world will start to seem more livable, and your grief jail cell will seem less comfortable. Will you try it? What have you got to lose? When you first lose your husband, being a widow will feel like your identity. This is appropriate and necessary at first, and the length of time you hold on to that identity differs for everyone. But being widowed is not who you are. It is a very difficult time, and it takes time to recover and heal. Healing is not forgetting the one you lost. He will remain a significant part of your life for all time. Many times a woman will tell us after losing her husband, I don't know who I am anymore. And that's a scary thought, isn't it? until you decide, and you will risk discovering who you are. Gradually, your fear will fade and living intentionally takes over again. If you're further along in your grief journey and yet you feel stuck or in need of some hope and healing, please check out our one-of-a-kind widow retreats. We do transformational work with only 4 widows during these retreats. Please check out our website for all the details and testimonials.